Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Zed, it was a pleasure teaching you. I had no idea what you were going to say, but I'm really pleased you enjoyed my assessment. And Maha, pleasure to be coming after you. I found your talk really interesting. I haven't any slides. Phil asked me to come along and share my experience following a frantic conversation I had with him back in January about ChatGPT. Just to put this into context, I'm the MBA director at Kemp Business School. I also teach undergraduates. And the reason why I had a frantic conversation with Phil, I'll talk you through my story. I was very much sort of forced into having to really deal with GPT head on. Probably like most of us over Christmas, I'd read a few things in the paper and everything was bubbling away. I returned to work and I had an MBA team meeting, and one of my, I suppose, more tech savvy module conveners said to me, Debbie, have we got a policy on ChatGPT? And I thought, oh my goodness, no, we haven't, and I don't really know how to respond to you. So that was the first sort of rude awakening. So I went away and did some reviews. But then the second concern I had was that we had a delivering innovation module, which was timetable for the end of January. And within that, my wonderful module convener, Thomas, teaches how you use AI in business. And we have an exam in that module, and it was a very traditional exam where you would have a choice of questions and you would answer those questions. So everything really was colliding in my MBA world in terms of how do we deal with this. It felt the values of our MBA program are very much about transformational leadership, sustainable innovation, diversity, EDI, and it felt to me, and when I discussed it through with Thomas, that we really had to face this head on. This was one of the latest technologies that was available out there. We teach AI within the classroom, and this was bound to come up as a discussion point. So we thought long and hard about it. I had a few sleepless nights. I had a chat to other colleagues within the business school. I had a chat to Phil. And so this is where I was in my mind loving it and hating it in equal measures, and I was being forced into really addressing it face on. Ultimately, we decided to embrace it, and that's why I'm here to share that with you. So just to explain, firstly, we decided to totally change how we did the exam, which I'll come on to in a moment. But within the classroom, we decided within the AI session that we would talk to the students around the benefits and the applications of AI within business. We would talk to them about the limitations of AI, again, within the business context. We would talk to them about how they should use AI responsibly in their leadership and decision making, and how they should approach critical thinking and solving problems, and what were the ethical implications. So we were teaching that to our students, and then we started talking to them about, okay, well, how do we then apply that in an exam situation? Now, I have to say at that point, my MBA students are more mature, they are leaders within business, and we had a very hearty discussion around the ethics of using ChatGPT, and we had to really draw on and work with the students and have that total transparency that was talked about before. So the outcome was the exam was always going to be open book, online 24 hours, because we have a global student, although the students are taught in the MBA classroom in person, many of them over the Christmas period away. So that was always in the plan. So I couldn't change that. A lot of colleagues would say to me, Debbie, you should have just gone back to the traditional exam sitting in a classroom. That would have solved your problems. I don't think it would in this example. But anyway, I was set into my open book exam. So we've now made it an open book and open tool exam. This is quite radical, or certainly it felt radical for me. And what we are saying to the students is, you can use AI. We actually want you to use AI in the exam. We want you to use the tool. We want you to apply AI to generate a result, but importantly, We then want you to put that in the appendices. So we have the transparency, we can see what the AI generated, and we want you to then apply that using practical business concrete examples. We want you to include continue with the academic literature that you needed to include, but the point was making this absolutely transparent in the way we were going to do it. So we're asking, importantly, for them to illustrate the approach they've used. We're asking them to use visuals such as charts, models, infographics. By the way, they're things that the AI tool struggles with at the moment. And importantly, we're also asking them to, within the exam, to critically reflect on the resource that they've used. And by the way, it's not just ChatGPT. There's loads of other versions which Phil knows a lot more about than I do. So Text Reader, Alpha, I'm having to read these because I don't know half of them. Elicit, Atlas, to name but a few. So we're asking the students to then critically reflect on that experience of using the AI tool to solve the problem. They've had to apply it, use examples, and then they have to critically reflect on that experience, detailing, contextualizing how adequate it was, how accurate it was as a resource, and then give insights on their learning. Now, as I say, this is aimed at MBA students. So we've talked to them about that. We've been very transparent. We've done a bit of a mock test with them so that they can see how this works in practice. We've gone through the marking criteria again with them in some detail so they really understand what we're asking of them. So we haven't done the exam yet, so maybe I need to come back after the exams happened and let you know the results. But as I say, I honestly had sleepless nights over this because, and this is why I spoke to Phil and other people within the institution, I appreciated that once I'd let the cat out of the bag, this was then going to cause conversations with other module conveners that would then come after the digital innovation module. There was a mixed response from colleagues. Some colleagues felt very nervous, as I did. Others felt, yeah, okay, we agree, you know, this is the right move to do. And it's interesting because now we're 2 months on from that conversation and things have moved on so quickly. And even with my undergraduate students, Zed was one of my undergraduate students a few years ago. I've been talking to them only yesterday as I set them a very traditional essay assignment, again, which I can't change. I'll probably change it for next year, by the way. But I talked to them about the fact, okay, I'm aware of ChatGPT, and let's have a discussion about how you might approach this assignment. Well, these are third-year undergraduates. Some of them looked at me with shock, as if to say, oh my goodness, she knows about this. And other, which was quite interesting because they were clearly planning on using it. And then we had a discussion about appropriate use, ethics, and again, got into that conversation about, you know, they want their assessments, the students want their assessments to be fair. They want to protect the integrity of the learning outcomes and their degrees. So it was a really open and frank conversation, and that will, I'm sure that will continue. So, and interestingly, I have a teenage son who's in sixth form. You know, he was talking, I've been talking to him about it. It's all over TikTok. He's very aware of it. And he said, well, Mum, just go back to traditional exams. That's what, you know, we do in my school. Going back to Zed's point, I think it's really important. And to me as an educator, this is as big for me as going to online teaching was when we hit COVID. This to me is where we really, I believe, and I'm doing it already, have to reflect back on our own practice. What is the best assessment? What's the most authentic assessment, which will help our students for their career readiness? You know, I work in a business school, so it's really important, you know, to encourage that critical thinking, the problem solving, the synthesis of information and data and research. So I think we really do need to now sit down and reflect. And I'm not saying I'm any expert. I don't profess to be. I just wanted to share where I'm at, and hopefully you will find, I think I'm probably nearing the end of my time, but I hope you find that helpful. Happy to take questions, and I would just encourage you to really embrace this. This is, I feel it's here to stay, and we have to work with it in order to make the student experience as best as we can, and to encourage their learning and their joy of learning. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much, Debbie. You're brilliant. It's I wish everyone could, like, we could have more cameras on at the same time, because I think everyone would be kind of giving you a big thumbs up as well. But yeah, it was a brilliant talk. Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. It's as you said, we kind of had a discussion a while ago, and I know you were very worried about kind of going through this step, and I wanted to give you a big thumbs up for taking that step, because that would have been quite nerve-wracking, certainly a couple of months ago as well, as to kind of thinking, is this the right thing to do?
Yeah.
I think it is the right thing to do, and I kind of stand by what we talked about kind of a couple of months ago. But you've pretty much summed it up. But how are you feeling now? Do you feel as anxious, or are you feeling okay now?
No, I'm feeling okay. I think because we've positioned and supported the students, and as I say, we've got another mock session with them in a few weeks, because we have I've got a global classroom, so I'm very aware of some students are studying in a second language. Some of the nuances of the AI can be more complicated, so it's really making sure the students feel comfortable with this as a means of assessment. They really, what I liked both with my MBA students and my undergraduates is they appreciated the transparency and the honest conversations, and almost this sort of collaborating that we want to get this right. And as I say, it shocked some of the ones who just thought they were going to get away with it. And funny enough, I did put my essay questions that I've just set for my undergraduates. I put it through ChatGPT, and I would probably agree the response would have got 2-2. So again, I shared that with them and said, is that really all you want? Surely you have, you're more ambitious than that. So again, it's working with the students. And I think there's things we can learn. So talking to yourself, Phil, and talking to, and I've been on a learning journey myself. So the AI tools are better at shorter essay titles than longer ones. So we changed the exam from answering 3 questions at 700 words to now just 1 question, which is over 2,000 words. So there's ways of understanding and working with the AI to try and limit the plagiarism as much as possible. And that whole idea of reflection, I think, is really important to try and encourage that critical thinking. And that's essentially what the students will be doing in the workplace.
Yeah.
We're all using it. I've used it a couple of times, and it's shockingly accurate, but then there are some obvious mistakes as well. So it's understanding that this is not a perfect tool by any stretches of the imagination.
Absolutely. I always say I plagiarise this from my wife, but she was saying that kind of reading the output from ChatGPT, I keep saying this the wrong way around, so apologies everyone. ChatGPT is like the Diet Coke version. It's nice, but it's just not the same as the full fat Coke version. But anyway, we have time for one more question, and Lynn has asked a really good one, so I'm just going to ask that, if that's okay. And Lynn has said, what do educators risk by ignoring or only kind of begrudgingly accepting kind of these large language models?
Listen, but I think that's a really good question, and that's where I was at with you, Phil, in January. I think it makes us look out of touch, to be honest, and I think it's important as educators that we keep up to date with our practice, and I think it's important to, I suppose it's like saying to somebody, don't use a calculator, and yet we have calculators on our phones, and why wouldn't you use a calculator? So I think it makes us look out of touch, and I think therefore our students will be more prone to use it to cheat, would be my view, whereas let's responsibly and ethically use and and work with where we are. I don't think that genie's going back in that bottle. I think it's out there, and that would be my view, Lynn. I'm personally really looking forward to the other speakers who are following me, because every time I'm learning, and I think we've just got to keep a really open mind with that and work with our students and people such as yourselves, Phil, who I've thank you for your support with this, because it's helped me feel less nervous.
Oh, well, I'm glad, and I think that's a really good point to end on, kind of that open discussion, and I think just constantly kind of reviewing where we're at with it. I think that's so important. So yeah, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.